One of the things that, really impressed me when I began training Jiu Jitsu, something that really caught my eye, something I admired, a skill set that, I really hoped that I would obtain was a good guard. When I would see like a good guard player able to be cool, relaxed under pressure, to control an aggressive guard passer, to me this was extremely impressive. It kind of reminded me of like a bullfighter, like a matador, And that was one thing when I would hit the mats, I wanted to kind of replicate that, but it looked a lot easier than it actually was. When you open your guard, there's so much uncertainty, there's unpredictability, and being a beginner, it was a lot of confusion. So typically when I would open my guard, I just get smashed. I get smashed to get my guard passed, And being a student, I noticed, I was lucky enough to have fantastic instructors, but with that said, it was still not, the easiest thing to learn, like there were so many different guards, which one should I invest in? There were so many different guard movements, guard attacks, I didn't have my priorities straight, And I think that's typical, like for Jiu-Jitsu students across the world, sometimes you come to class and it's kind of like a show and tell, you shown a move or two and you practice a move or two and then you go and spar and you kind of figure it out on your own, So I'm going to give you a perspective. I'm going to give you some principles to play the open guard by. And, these are some principles, I've gathered throughout my journey, and I put them in a system that if you adhere to them, you're going to be a better guard player. If you disregard them, it's not going to help your guard game. So, principle number 1, this is extremely important. If you open your guard, you'll play open guard. If your opponent opens your guard, he'll smash you or pass you, a combination of both. So this is initiative, being in control. This was, a buddy of mine, Misho, who's a half Gracie black belt, told me this, I believe, when I was a blue belt. And at the time, I didn't really value it, but this is the foundation of these principles. If you open your guard, you'll play open guard. If he opens your guard, he's going to smash you.
This perspective we have when we're playing the closed guard is, if I open my guard, it's going to give me a chance to play open guard. If I don't, if I hesitate and he opens my guard, he's going to pass my guard. So one standard, very basic way of opening the guard is going to be controlling the sleeve. We're going to consider this a point of contact. Grabbing the lapel, give me some say over his posture, another point of contact. And I'm going to place my foot on the floor and I'm going to make a movement onto my side. This foot on his hip is the point of contact I'm looking for. Bringing my knee inside to his shoulder is going to be another point of contact I'm going to be looking for. And if he stands up and starts circling around, I can use these points of contact, whether it be his hip or his bicep, I can use these to kind of go along for the ride, So as he starts circling, keep my elbows close to my body, and now I can go to work. Now I can, put up a fight.
Principle number 2. Now your guard's open. There's so many different guards to play, so many different sweeps, so many different submissions. What do I do? What's my priority? So principle number 2, 4 points of contact. This is your highest priority. A friend of mine, Samuel Braga, who I think is like arguably the best guard player in sport jiu-jitsu today. He gave a great analogy of a guy trying to climb a mountain. He's asked, can a guy climb a mountain with one hand? Obviously not. Can he climb a mountain with 2 hands? No. 2 hands and 1 foot, maybe a couple strides, you know, but you're gonna need 4 points of contact with this mountain to climb it. 2 hands, 2 feet, right? And what do you think is the, going through the mind of a mountain climber if he like loses a point of contact with the mountain? What are his priorities? You can imagine that his highest priority is to get that point of contact back. So that's our priority. Once our guard is open, doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish. 4 points of contact is your number 1 priority.
This puts us at 1 point of contact. This foot under his hip will give me 2 points of contact. Controlling his collar would be a 3rd. This foot that's on his bicep or his hip, okay, this is gonna be my 4th point of contact. And these points of contact, there's gonna be different variations of them. You might see some people prefer to dominate the sleeve, control the pants or the heel. They might take the foot off the bicep and connect with their opponent under his knee. There's gonna be unlimited variations of points of contact, but to kind of put things in perspective, the way I like to show the students is, if you've been training long enough, you've been in a situation where you've had someone here in like what they call a bullfighter situation, someone controlling your pants. And this is a fairly dominant grip for the guy on top. He has 2 points of contact. The guy in the bottom has none. So if we were to say start, I'd have a pretty easy time trying to get past these legs. But if Ramon puts his feet on my bicep, this is 1, this is 2. Now it's 2 versus 2. It was 2-0, now he puts 2-2. Now I'm gonna have a slightly harder time passing his guard. If he pulls his knees to himself and he grabs my sleeves, now this is 4-2. Now I'm gonna have a much harder time getting past his legs. Again, this 4 points of contact is not, I'm not trying to tell you how to counter the bullfighter pass. I'm trying to, kind of drive home the point that more points of contact equal more problems for the guard passer to solve. More roadblocks, more things in his way to get past before he can get past your legs. 4 points of contact.
Principle number 3, your feet are your first line of defense. You see, De La Riva guard, spider guard, X guard, 50-50 guard, so many different terminology, so many different types of guards. Let's make everything simple. Any type of techniques that are going to take place with your opponent behind your feet, we're going to refer to this as your first line of defense. Your feet are your first line of defense. Defense against what? Defense against pressure. You see, you should have the confidence knowing that the guard passer can't smash you if he's behind your feet. You have to understand the value of your feet. You can use your feet to sweep, set up submissions, and ultimately protect yourself from getting smashed.
Moving on to the 3rd principle is, and this is really where the mental perspective is, this is what I'm really trying to push home with this system, with this way of thinking. It's like, I want you to have a newfound appreciation for your feet. We have 4 points of contact. And that's unless you have 4 hands, that's gonna be a combination of your hands as well as your feet and your knees, So the feet, they're our first line of defense. Could be in your classical open guard. There's gonna be, several different, examples we can give for using the feet, different types of guard, but again, the feet are the first things I need to get past as a guard passer. And the guard player can find some assurance, you know, like, and find some peace of mind knowing that I can't really smash him until I get past those feet, you know? Like if he were to put his feet on my hips, for example, like if I start driving all my weight into him, this has no effect on him. He's kind of, you know, managing my weight from there. So as a guard player, whether you're using the traditional foot on the hip, foot on the bicep, you're using like a De La Riva situation here, you know, the feet are the first thing the guy has to get past. The feet are your primary tool for managing the guard passer's pressure. And we can use the feet, whether it's the back of the feet to block, or it's the front of the feet, for example, of a, let's say of a butterfly guard, please. You know, sometimes it's going to be, you know, the feet they're going to come into play again for like a hooking movement, you know, where he uses the feet to off balance me here to finish his sweep. So our first line of defense can be used to, we can use the insteps to hook, sweeping our opponent. We can use the feet to block and roll our opponents. The feet are the first line of defense.
Principle number 4. Your knees are your second line of defense. Again, so many different guards that this can refer to. You know, you can say the knee shield. You can say, you know, arguably the butterfly guard. You know, anytime the opponent's behind the knees, we're working with our knees, this is going to be referred to as your second line of defense. Again, when my opponent's behind my knees, if I use them properly, I'm not going to get smashed. I can neutralize his pressure. So if I want to prevent myself from getting smashed, I have my opponent behind my first and second lines of defense.
So the fourth principle now are our knees. These two principles, the feet, the knees, these are like, this is crucial. We understand the feet, our first line of defense. Our knees are our second line of defense. If he gets past the feet, it's not the end of the world. We can still attack from our knees, and more importantly, we're still able to manage his weight. You know, this perspective is going to give you the ability to manage a guard passer's weight. You know, I don't want you to open your guard and just be, you know, stressed out from all the pressure. The feet, the knees, these are your primary tools to manage that pressure, to frustrate the guard passer. So if I were to manage as a guard passer to get past, let's actually get the feet. If I'm able to get past the feet somehow and make my way here in front of his knees, a knee shield, Z guard, 93 guard, these are some of the more common terms I've come across that kind of describe this situation, but basically the guard player's knees, if he can keep me behind them, he can manage my weight. You know, we're going to consider this a point of contact, we're going to consider this a point of contact, and he should be looking for multiple points of contact with the hands, right? We need how many? So sometimes you see guys in this situation. This is one example of how someone can use the second line of defense, the knees. You know, another example can be the butterfly guard, right? Similarly, same thing, same principles at work. As a butterfly guard player, you need to keep the guard passer behind your knees, right? The knees, let's go back to this. After, if I were to start putting all my weight onto the guard passer here, you know, if you just engage your knees a little bit, get your points of contact, he's blocking the crossface, he can still manage this. That's the big picture. If you keep the opponent behind the knees, you can still manage his weight. We can argue that, you know, the weight is best managed behind the feet. This is where he will feel the least amount of pressure. But if I get past the knees, if I get past the feet, the knees are still a very strong tool to deal with a guard passer's pressure.
Principle number 5. There is a third line of defense. So we have our feet, first line of defense. Our knees are our second line of defense. There is a third line of defense. And this would be any time your opponent gets past your knees. So ideally this would be, we can say, the traditional underhooking half guard, deep half guard, X guard, quarter guard. Anytime your opponent gets past your knees, forget about all the names now. The names will change, you know. We speak a different language, maybe we use a different name, right? But we're making it simple for you. Your feet are your first line of defense. Your knees are your second line of defense. Anytime your opponent gets past your knees, there is a third line of defense, but there's a requirement. If you're going to use the third line of defense, it is a must that you control that transition, that you take the initiative. Similarly, like the first principle, right? You need to open the guard. Don't wait for him. If you wait for your opponent to get past your second line of defense, he's starting to get past your knees. If you didn't take any initiative, you're going to be carrying his weight. You're going to get smashed, you know. But if you took the initiative, now you can engage the third line of defense. And this is going to mean you positioned yourself properly where you're not bearing your opponent's weight.
If you're going to use the third line of defense, you have to control that transition. It has to be on your terms. You can't allow the guard passer to just, force his way past your knees. Because if I'm allowing him to start forcing himself past my knees, then what this usually looks like is me chest to chest carrying his weight. So if you're ever going to use any of the third lines of defense, for example here, if I'm going to ever enter into it, I have to control the transition. Here's one example. One, right? That's one example, right? One, I control this transition. He puts that leg up. I control this transition. If you control the transition, you'll play the third line of defense. If you don't control the transition, you'll be chest to chest, probably cross-faced, carrying all of his weight.
So those are 5 principles. The last principle I'm going to leave you with is the principle of resetting. You see, a lot of people psychologically, they set themselves in a position to fail. They think in a way of like sweep, submit, or bust. But one quote comes to mind. I remember hearing Carlos Gracie Jr. say something along the lines of making a comparison of like a good open guard player being similar to like a wild animal tamer. And this was really beautiful because, this gives you the perspective of like, patience. Sometimes you're going to have a very big, aggressive, strong, skillful guard passer. So realistically, you're not going to be able to sweep or submit everybody on your first try. So we need to have weight management. We have to have priorities. And your ability to reset the guard passer is going to be directly, related to your ability to tame this person. Let me ask you this. Once you start passing the guard, you're making some progressions. How does it feel when your opponent puts you right back into the closed guard? Some people say this is demoralizing, this is frustrating, and that's exactly what a good guard player is capable of doing. He understands the value of resetting. So if you're in my first line of defense, I'm using my feet, and you get past them, I'm keeping you behind my knees. Just being able to put you back behind my feet, this is an accomplishment. Doing this once, twice, this might be all you need to get the guard passer frustrated, to get him out of position, to make him make decisions that he's not comfortable making, and that's going to set up our attacks.
As a guard player, I need to constantly, I have to understand that not every guard passer is going to be able to get swept or submitted on the first attempt in the first 30 seconds, especially if they're bigger than me and better than me, right? So if I can reset the guard passer, this is gonna start chipping away at his psyche, and ultimately, if it can lead me back to the closed guard, I'll find the most stability there. I'll find the most control there, So one example of a minor reset is gonna be from the first position that we showed, the first line of defense, 4 points of contact. I'm here, and as we're commonly taught, I need to be positioned on the side that I'm dominating. My hips are positioned this way, therefore making his guard passing slightly difficult. But if he starts circling to my weak side, naturally my hips might start turning in his favor. So if I have no ability to reset, now I'm forced to kind of deal with that. And maybe I can deal with it, maybe not. But if I can reset my hips, this kind of takes away that opportunity for the guard passer, right? That's one example of a minor reset. An example of a major reset would be the closed guard, right? But from all the lines, we can reset to the previous line, right? So let's look at the second line of defense. I don't ever want to be forced to play a guard that I don't want to play. I don't want to be forced here. So if I don't like, for whatever reason, what's going on, my ability to reset the guard passer is going to be crucial for my guard. If I don't have the ability to reset and I'm forced to play here, I just might be forced into my half guard now, and I might be forced to deal with his weight. So one of the quotes I usually tell the guys about is a quote that I heard from Carlos Gracie Jr., making the analogy of a good guard player being like a wild horse tamer, like a wild animal tamer. What does that mean? How do you tame a wild animal, When it comes to guard playing, guard passing, as a guard passer, I have been tamed before, You have a good guard player, you think you're making some gains, you're getting close, you're almost to the half guard, and before you know it, he resets you, you're back in his closed guard, and mentally you're frustrated. You might even lose some confidence. And this is the capability we need. We need this as guard players. It's not always going to be sweep and submit on the first try. We need to be able to control and reset and manage the weight of our guard passers.
Jiu Jitsu is like similar to like a war. Like in a war, we study in history that, typically there's many battles in a war. And the army that's able to win more battles or more important battles typically is going to win the war. And if you look a little bit closer, you see when the army loses a battle, this can have an impact on the morale of their soldiers. If they lose one battle, they lose another battle, now the soldiers might even be contemplating just giving up. But on the other end, if you're winning these battles, your morale can be increasing, and this can lead to you winning the war. So in regards to the Jiu-Jitsu comparison, these are battles. Whether you're aware of them or not, they're happening. Whether you were aware of them or not, they're typically leading to your frustration at times. When we're engaging, we all have two invisible meters. One is our physical endurance, and another one is our psychological endurance. Things happen during the match. Sometimes you press on the gas a little bit, and now depleted a little bit. Maybe you lose a grip fighting battle, a 4 points of contact battle. Maybe the opponent starts progressing. Now you're carrying their weight. They won the battle of the first line. They won the battle of the second line. Now they won the battle of the third line defense. This can lead to your psychological meter depleting, so be patient, use these principles. Every single guard that's there will fit in this template. Every time you learn a new guard, put it in this template. These principles are not meant to make you like a conservative guard player in regards to your creativity. All the modern stuff, all the fancy stuff, they're gonna fit in this template. Because look at it from the other perspective. Should you wait for the opponent to open your legs? Is that better for you? Should you not have any regard for your points of contact? Should you work with 0 instead of 4? Is that better for you? So this has helped me and my students tremendously, and I hope that this is going to be a great bit of information for you on your journey. Thanks for being patient with me and giving me your time.